life, the bright lights, the type the crowd likes. Where you at, ballers? Ladies love me and men, they wanna be me, they pay to come see me. Where you at, ballers?
Raptors at Pistons, NBA shot clock. Wednesday, March 13th, 2024. An official play, Detroit -2. A continuing conversation on NBA shot clock is the noticeable gap between Detroit's outright record and their ATS efficiency. This team sits 11-53 straight up, but they are 24-14 ATS last 38. A bye team against the spread, connecting now with their young players after moving some older pieces off the roster at the deadline, and Monty Williams finally showing signs of being the right coach. Toronto comes into tonight's game in purely a brutal spot. 3 consecutive road games at the Western Conference, a cover at Phoenix, a tight loss in overtime at Portland, and another cover, one of their better games in recent history, on Monday night in Denver. Now they got to finish this trip in Detroit against a team that has competed well against them this year. This is the third matchup of the year. Go back to November 19th. Toronto did hammer Detroit, a far worse version of Detroit in Toronto, 142-113. And it all changed on December 30th when Detroit got Toronto at home as an underdog, 129-127. Now we go from Toronto -4.5 to Detroit -1.5 at open. Books telling us all the narratives I just described are very real. We expect Detroit to win this game by 8 points or more. Buy this one tonight. The first official NBA shot clock on this Wednesday. Detroit -2, 1 unit.
Hornets at Grizzlies. Junior Browne back with NBA shot clock on this Wednesday, March 13th with another free pick. We're rocking with the Grizzlies team total under 103.5. I gave you guys the Grizzlies as a winner last night. 2 nights in a row might be a little much. Now, we're rocking with the team total because of the fact that they played last night. The Grizzlies are terrible on the second night of a back-to-back, 2-7 straight up on the season. Here's the little secret that people are not paying attention to about the Hornets. They're a terrible basketball team. We know this. Injuries have ravaged this team, plus they've made a couple trades. That being said, since the All-Star break, in the last 10 games, they're a top 10 defense. As a matter of fact, a defensive rating of 111.5. If you prorate that across the whole season, I'm not crazy, I know you can't do that, but let's just try to put it into context. If you were to prorate that across the whole season, the Cavaliers are third in the league right now in defensive rating at 111.5. So the fact that the Hornets have been able to play this level of defense for this extended period of time is actually something that's pretty impressive, and I think that shooting doesn't always translate. It doesn't always carry, especially on road games, but defense does. That's why I picked Memphis last night over the Washington Wizards, and that's why I'm going to pick Charlotte to hold Memphis to under 103.5 tonight, because they've been doing it regularly. These two teams are 2 of the worst offensive teams in this league right now. Last 10 games, they're both averaging under 100 a game. With all of that said, the total of 205.5 is just too low for me. 1 hot shooting quarter, and that's dead in the water. I prefer to fade the team that just played last night with a terrible offense against a team that's actually showing some defensive effort and organization. So, all of that said, give me the Memphis Grizzlies team total under 103.5. Let's cash yet another ticket, y'all.
Nets at Magic, 7 o'clock, Kia Center, Orlando, Florida. A top lean in this game, under 205.5. Fourth matchup of the year, 2 words we love, data abundant. Go back pre-New Year's, 2 games played in Brooklyn, 2 Brooklyn blowouts and overs, 124-104 and 129-101. Key point on the line, 220 over, 222.5 over. And then we came back to Florida on February 27th, and books said, here comes the reversal. Here comes Orlando blowout, and here comes Orlando basketball, which is defensive basketball, and they move the line down to 215 points. Now the fourth matchup of the year, another one in Orlando. We're moving it further down to 207, suggesting a game played to a final under 200 points. And if you really go through the metrics of what these teams are doing, both teams are absolutely putrid scoring the basketball. Both play to a bottom 20% pace, a bottom 20% points per game, and the defensive rating for Orlando, 4th overall, will stifle Brooklyn, who is 26th in the league in field goal percentage. All signs in this game point to an under. If you guys want to bet this game, we suggest under 205.5. Let's cash this ticket.
Warriors at Mavs. Junior Browne back with NBA Shot Clock on this Wednesday, March 13th with another free pick. And we're rocking with the Mavs team total over 121.5. Don't think this Golden State Warriors can slow them down enough to keep them under this total. The Mavs average 120 points per game on their home court. And I know the numbers say Golden State have been much better defensively. And it's true, the numbers do say that. However, if you look at some of the teams they've played recently, like they played the Spurs back-to-back, they played the Bulls before that, they played a lot of mediocre to bad offensive teams. And I think that with this new lineup flexibility that Daniel Gafford has brought in, so now Derek Lively is coming off the bench, which is probably the way it should be for a young player like him, still trying to figure out NBA basketball. He looks better. Daniel Gafford looks amazing. Maxi Kleber still doing what he does. And I think that trio of big men and the flexibility that offers Dallas's lineup is going to be too much for Golden State, who just doesn't really play any big men anymore. They play that young guy, but he doesn't have anything for these guys. And again, just go back and look at Dallas's last game. Kyrie and Luka couldn't really make a shot, and they still put up a $127. So if Kyrie and Luka play average or above average, which for Luka is not a problem, and for Kyrie either, for that matter, especially against this Golden State backcourt, I think that's the Mavs sail over this total. It's the only part of this game that I can trust because I can't lay 7.5 points with a Mavs defense that's letting in over 120 points per 100 possessions. I can always trust their offense though, especially with Luka, who makes scoring the basketball look like he's playing at the local YMCA. So give me the Dallas offense to get over 121.5 and cash us another ticket, y'all.
Bulls at Pacers, divisional basketball on this Wednesday, NBA Shot Clock. An official play on the Bulls plus 4.5. Chicago comes into tonight's game off a brutal loss at home to Dallas on Monday night. But that was a schedule spot that did not set them up for success. Coming off of a West Coast trip, a standalone home game before going in the division in a revenge game against Indiana. Chicago now returns to where they have performed great in the last 2.5 months on the road. 13-4 ATS, last 17 on the road. And as I mentioned, finding a revenge game, but a key element to this matchup in the division, the road team 2-0 straight up and ATS this year. This line is short for one specific reason. Indiana is on a 3rd-4 road home back-to-back off big-time games against Orlando and Oklahoma City, returning to where they have underperformed all year. Indiana is 2-9 ATS on the second leg of a back-to-back. We expect Chicago to return to form in this spot and potentially win outright tonight. Take Chicago, an official play, at plus 4.5, and let's cash.
Lakers at Kings. Junior Browne back with NBA Shot Clock on this Wednesday, March 13th with another free pick. My best bet of the day. Kings team total over 118.5. Had a hard time deciding whether or not to give y'all the Kings money line or the Kings team total. I went with the Kings team total because in the 3 games that the Kings have beaten the Lakers, because yes, they're 3-0 against the Lakers, they're averaging 128 points per game against this LA team. And there's a very simple reason why. So the Lakers are a top 2 team in transition offense. They get out and they run a lot, and they're actually really efficient in doing so. Here's a problem. Look at the makeup of the Kings team. You want to run with those guys? The Kings look at that and they're just like, all right, cool. Y'all want to run with us? Bet. Let's do it. And they've just been running them off the court. The last game ended with a total of 250 points. I believe the total in this game is like 238 and a half. The Lakers are the favorites here, which I get it. The Kings played last night, but did they seem like they had a problem last night? I don't know. There's nothing about this spread that makes sense to me. But I don't really want to get involved in those semantics because, again, I don't trust the Kings as a basketball team because they let in as many points as they score, which is why I rarely ever bet on them. In this scenario, I'm just asking them to do what they've done the entire season to this specific team, the Lakers, which is run them off the court. It's going to be hard for them to beat them 4 times in a row, but I know they're going to score over 118 and a half points. That, to me, seems like a lock. My play of the day, Sacramento Kings, team total over 118 and a half. Let's cash yet another ticket, y'all.
Nuggets at Heat, NBA shot clock. Wednesday, March 13th, a top play, an official play. The buy hat is engaged. Miami plus 3.5, 1 unit. This is the ultimate revenge game you will find in a calendar season. Miami lost the finals last June 4-1 and lost both games in Miami. Then they proceeded to go to Denver this season in recent history on February 29th and take yet another loss, 103-97. Now they get to come home in their home gym and bring their A-list quality. Miami also has been lackluster leading up to this game, taking a couple losses on the road at Dallas and OKC, and coming home on Sunday and laying one of the biggest eggs of their entire season, an outright loss to hapless Washington, clearly looking ahead to tonight's national game. Denver is playing their final road game of the year at the Eastern Conference, so we are data abundant. Denver is 5-8-1 ATS at the East, purely lackluster, and situational non-covers at Philadelphia, New York, Cleveland, and Orlando, all teams that play a slow pace with a high defensive rating, just like Miami. Buy the Heat tonight at plus 3.5. We expect an outright win, potentially with some emphasis. The buy hat is engaged. NBA shot clock, Wednesday, March 13th, Miami plus 3.5, 1 unit.
Hawks at Blazers, Junior Browne back with NBA shot clock on this Wednesday, March 13th with another free pick. This one is just a lean, not an official. It's the Hawks and the Blazers under 216 and a half. Now, the reason it's not an official is because I'm an old school capper where I gotta watch games to understand how they got to these numbers. It's not possible to watch all games, but what I'll do is I'll try to take their best recent wins, their best recent losses, and kind of, meet somewhere in the middle. The numbers tell you a lot of the story, but they don't tell you the whole story. And I'm just being transparent because I don't watch a lot of Hawks games recently, and I definitely don't watch a lot of Portland games because their offense is just unwatchable for me as a basketball fan. I say all of that to say the numbers lead me to the under because of a few things. Well, one very specific thing. Since Trae Young went down, Jalen Johnson's down, and just all the injuries they have, the Hawks have made a very conscious decision to no longer push pace. Before the All-Star break, they were third in the league in pace at like 101, 102 possessions per game. They've dropped all the way down to like 23rd, closer to like 96 possessions per game, which is right around where the Portland Trailblazers are. So that's why the Hawks totals before Trae Young's injury were at like an average of 245. Now they're like an average of like 219-ish. So this is a completely different basketball team. And even though this 216 and a half seems like a really low number, it's actually right in the wheelhouse of where they play, especially on the road. If they're not going to push pace and they're devoid of scoring options with all these injuries, then these totals are just going to keep trending to the under. So until I sit back and torture myself later today and watch some Hawks games and watch some Blazers games, I can't make it an official, but I have a strong lean to the under 216 and a half for all the reasons I just gave y'all. If you're telling me, time to cash another ticket.
Cavaliers at Pelicans, out of conference basketball, Wednesday, March 13th. A top lean in this game for you guys as we try to give you the best look in every game on the schedule. Take the under 218 and let's discuss. Second matchup of the year. These teams did play in Cleveland on December 21st. A game that finished 123 to 104. Key point on the line, 229. Now moving down to 218 and a half, suggesting a game under 208 points. That game that got up to 227 did not feature Zion Williamson, did not feature Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland, or Evan Mobley, which made the game far more wide open because the backup players run and gun and shoot a ton of threes. Now that the starters are expected back in the lineup, we expect it to slow back down to where these teams find their comfortability. Cleveland has the 22nd pace in the league and the 3rd defensive rating, and New Orleans has the 16th pace in the league and the 5th defensive rating. These teams bring Game 7 defense. This will be a real slowdown affair at the Smoothie King Center. If you guys want to bet this game, bet the under 218 and let's cash this ticket.